So, our next speaker for tonight is Deviant Designs, and he's going to tell us about his journey into the interactive BDSM, and he's going to share us his secrets, hopefully, and we're going to find out everything that happens in his world. Welcome, Deviant Designs.
Thank you. Okay, so my name's Gary, and I've got a little project that I like to call Deviant Designs. It's a bit of a passion of mine, and essentially it's making custom BDSM toys. A lot of the toys, they rely on, they're pretty heavily involved in predicament bondage. So the idea is that I'm giving my submissive a task to do. The reason I really enjoy that concept, first and foremost, is because it's a form of escapism for the submissive. It's a way to distract them from everyday life, to get their mind away from whatever they're doing. You'll notice a running theme in a lot of my toys involves shocking someone. I don't necessarily do it to shock someone, that's not the idea. The shock is a deterrent. It's to keep them focused on the task that I'm giving them. So this talk is basically, I'm going to talk you through a bit about my design process, how I make my toys. It's pretty apt that I haven't got any slides because I'm not technically knowledgeable. I don't know how to make slides, and that's pretty fitting for the rest of the stuff that I'm going to do tonight. You don't have to be too clever to do this stuff. I do not have a background in computers. I don't have a background in electronics. I've never really coded before until I started making kinky toys. This, for me, has been a brilliant project to learn. And I think it's brilliant that it's sex tech because I've got a passion to learn and to keep building new toys, and it's the motivation that I need to learn. So, how did I get started? I was always a little bit nerdy, and I kept seeing Arduino kits online, and I thought they were brilliant. I keep seeing all these clever things that people make with Arduinos. So I wanted one, and I bought myself a starter kit. I read the instruction manual, and I learned how to make an LED light up. Fantastic. But what do you do with that knowledge? I can make a light, but that was it. So the starter kit went back in a box, went under the bed for another year. So about a year later, I was playing with a shock collar, as you do, and it's got a remote control to it. And something flashed in my head, and I remembered back to the Arduino, the manual, and it said that you can control TV remotes. I thought, well, if you can control TV remotes, could I control shock collars with it? So straight under the bed I went, and I pulled out the Arduino starter kit. And I started reading through, and sure enough, it was fairly simple to control remote controls. It's about 2 different components. You've got the Arduino, and you've got an opto-isolator. So I took the remote control apart, and sure enough, it was really easy. I did a little bit of soldering, got everything connected, and my Arduino could now control the remote control, and it could send shocks to people, or shocks to the shock collar. Fantastic. But again, what do you do with that? I've got no way, I've got no method, no input, so to speak. I've just got an output. So that's when I started. I was a little bit stuck. I didn't know what to do. And then one day, this really weird idea came in my head. I want to make a maze. I want to make a maze that if you can't complete, you get punished. And that's where Deviant Designs essentially was born, because ever since then, I've been making other toys and other things to capture my submissive's attention and to make sure that she has a task to complete and to give her a form of escapism. So moving back to the maze, I had no idea how to make a maze. No idea. So I was probably sat on this idea for about 6 months. And then my gorgeous girlfriend Kirsty, she bought me a 3D printer for my birthday. And she regrets that now. So this 3D printer, it was, I think nowadays it's about £160 online, which for some people is a lot of money, but for most people it's in the realms of affordability. Again, I've got no experience in 3D printing. I've never modelled anything in CAD before. I've got no idea what I'm doing. But that's the brilliant thing about now. There are so many resources online. YouTube's fantastic. There are so many different websites and people spend so much time making tutorials, showing people how to do things. So I sat down and I watched some videos, I read some websites, and I thought, you know what? I might be able to do this. So I did. I sat down and I found a tool online called Fusion 360. I don't know if anyone knows of it. It's a free for hobbyists CAD tool, and it's very powerful. So I sat down, I started playing, and I managed to get the maze box modelled up in CAD. I sent that over to the printer, and somehow everything worked. It printed out, and it worked. So then it was time for the electronics. So I've got the maze, but now I need to figure out how do I detect when the ball is hitting the other side. I went down a simple route. I just made a metal contact at one end. As the metal ball touches the contact, it detects it, sends a shock. So that was a fairly simple implementation. A running theme with my toys is they're really simple when you break them down. They are one input and one output. So the output is no different to turning the LED light on, what I did the first day I picked up an Arduino. I'm just turning something on. The input, again, they're very easy. Think of just a switch. All you're detecting is when a signal goes high. It's a fairly easy concept to grasp once you start playing with this kind of equipment. And once you realize how simple the concept is, you can start thinking about other sensors. And they work in very similar ways. You're just detecting when something happens. And that's kind of how most of my toys are. People keep saying I'm really, really clever, really smart, and it's brilliant for my ego. But I'm not. They're really simple machines, but the thing is, it's just so easy now to get involved and start creating unique experiences for people. And I would really encourage anyone that's got any kind of interest whatsoever to just have a go. It's a really rewarding hobby. The trick is you need to find something you're passionate about. Unfortunately, hurting my girlfriend seems to be what I'm passionate about. But luckily, she's very supportive. And I can't say thanks enough for that. So, in regards to the tools I use, mainly it tends to be the 3D printer, as most of you have seen. Everything's 3D printed for the most part. It's easy. If you can imagine it, you can design it and you can print it. In regards to designing on a computer, what I tend to use is Fusion 360. Like I mentioned already, it's a really powerful tool, and it's free for hobbyists, which is fantastic. For the electronics side of things, I tend to use Arduinos. Like I mentioned, I have no experience with computer code, but Arduinos are fantastic. They're so simple to use. You can make things work with just as little as 6 lines of code. And there are so many tutorials out there for all these crazy things. Some people do some insanely complex things that I just wouldn't have a clue how to understand. But yeah, Arduinos are really powerful things. So it's just a few simple tools, and you can create some really complex things. Since I started with these simple tools, I've moved on to other things. We started doing live streams, which were interactive with the internet, and the interaction worked through Twitter. This was something that was written in Python, and the idea was we would put a tweet out, and every retweet of that tweet would add 30 seconds onto a timer. That timer was connected to a pair of cuffs that work on electromagnets. So the magnets held Kirsty's wrists to my desk. Every time I got a retweet, it added 30 seconds onto the timer. And as you can imagine, I was praying that tweet did not go viral. I was panicking. But luckily for our first time, I think it ended up being an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah. But that was a really fun experiment, and you can see some people being nice with it, and some people trying to desperately to hire a tweet bot or, outsource it to China and get 1,000 people to sit there and retweet and be mean. It's and since then, I've moved into other technologies. I'm starting dabbling with C# now. But this all stems from that original, the Arduino and the 3D printer. Some really simple concepts. So if anyone has a passion or wants to get into making, I would strongly recommend to do it, because now is a fantastic time to do it. Technology is getting better. 3D printers are getting cheaper. And the best part is the different technologies for 3D printers are getting better. The kind of 3D printer I use is not safe for insertables, really, unless you seal them. What people traditionally do is they'll create a silicon mold, So they'll create a mold from a 3D print, cast it in silicon. I think in the future that could potentially change. There's new ways of 3D printing materials that are coming out, and I think having a background, if you know how to 3D print already, you'll be well set for when these new technologies come out. So you can 3D print sex toys straight off the bat. I think we're getting close. There's materials now you can 3D print stainless steel. I think one of the methods at the minute is called MIMS, which is metal injection molding. So you can have an idea, you can model it up in CAD in a couple of hours. You can send it to your printer, you can print it out, it can be printed in stainless steel. You put it in a kiln, you burn out the binder material, what's called, and you're left with a fully cured, 99% dense stainless steel part that's safe to use. So I think now is a fantastic time to start dabbling if you have any interest. Thank you very much.